Bat Lady. Today I want to show you how to play Rosaria. She's one of the better supports in the game, and she's a really good battery, deals a lot of cryo damage, and she also holds her own as a main DPS, dealing physical damage. There's many different ways to play her, and many different builds that you can choose from. In this video, I hopefully can give you a better idea of how to use her. So her Ascension stat is attack percentage, so you can reach some rather high numbers in the attack department. You also want to build her with a lot of crit chance, but I'll explain more on that later. Her normal attack, you hit up to 5 times with her polearm, and these modifiers are actually quite large. This is a talent level 5, and for comparison, here is her skills at level 10. So yeah, these are really strong modifiers for normal attacks. This is why I say she can be a pretty decent main DPS. Especially for a 4-star, those are crazy modifiers. Her elemental skill, you warp behind the enemy and you stab them in the back or slash them or whatever, and you deal cryo damage. This can also give you extra crit rate, a lot of particles, especially if you're using Favonius Lance, and it has a cooldown of only 6 seconds. So it's very spammable. Her elemental bust makes it so you throw down a giant lance and it'll explode every 2 seconds, dealing cryo damage in an AoE. It pulses 4 times in total. If you have her C4, it will pulse 6 times in total. Plus you have the initial cast. It lasts 8 seconds originally, and even longer with the C4 obviously. And the cooldown is only 15 seconds, with an energy cost of 60, so you can have this thing up all the time. Her first passive ability is going to make it so you get 12% crit rate every time you cast Ravaging Confession, her elemental skill. And her second passive is Shadow Samaritan, where you actually share crit rate with your party members by up to 15% of Rosaria's crit. So if you have 100% crit rate on Rosaria, you're going to be giving everyone on the team 15% crit chance when you cast her elemental burst. Her elemental skill also adds to this because it goes off of her current crit rate. So if you get the 12% from her elemental skill and then cast her burst, that will be counted towards it. And I really like how her kit synergizes with itself. Her last skill makes it so you can move faster at night, and this is a lot more useful than it sounds. Because if you're going on an artifact run, or perhaps looking for ore, or just want to get around the map faster, it's a really nice skill to have. Here's an example of how fast you can run. This also has some other buffs on it, but yeah, definitely quite speedy. So here's the crit rate before and after I cast her elemental skill. You want to try and get behind the enemy, which is very important because this is how you get it. And there you go, 12% crit chance. A little known fact about Rosaria, a lot of people say that you can't get the crit rate buff on big enemies like Ruin Guards, but that's absolutely incorrect because you still can. You just need to position yourself correctly and move around to their back and cast the ability at their back. And there you go, the crit rate buff. It's just a very important note to keep in your mind. So I'm going to show some comparisons with her and Shenhe. This is just her burst without Shenhe. Nothing too crazy, 8,272 damage. And here's going to be with Shenhe's elemental skill. We're getting 13,589. That's quite a big bump in damage. And last but not least, we're going to show with her elemental skill and burst buffing Rosaria. And that's dealing 16,709. That is literally double what she was dealing without Shenhe. So Shenhe can be an amazing teammate for her. So speaking of which, let's go into talking about support Rosaria. In this clip here, I'm showing her being used as a physical support for Official, which is a really good character to use for Official. And for Razor, or, well, any other physical user for that matter, if you have her C6 especially. Hands down, one of her best weapons is the Favonius Lance. This has so much utility. And the passive procs when you get critical hits, and she should be getting critical hits a lot. Has high base attack and energy recharge, so really, really solid weapon for her. The deathmatch is also really good because it gives you crit rate, and also it gives you attack percentage, whether there are enemies around or not. So really solid choice there, although it is a battle pass weapon, so not everyone will have this. The catch is a good choice as well, as it has pretty high raw, big energy recharge, and it'll make your elemental bust do more damage. So the Black Cliff is very situational, as if you're using her as a support, you're not going to be killing stuff with her all the time, so you're probably not going to be getting the passive as much. The Wavebreaker's Fin is also situational, as it only buffs her elemental burst, and it doesn't really offer much else in terms of utility. If you don't have any of these options, the White Tassel will work just fine until you get something better, as it does have a crit rate on it. Any of the 5-star weapons are good. Staff of Home is great. Primordial Jade Spear is great, and Engulfing Lightning is fantastic. This one is probably one of the best options for her, as it increases your attack based on your energy recharge. So especially if you're running a 4-piece emblem, this can be amazing. Speaking of emblem, let's get into her artifacts. One of her very best sets is going to be a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer, as it just gives an asinine amount of crit rate. 20% crit rate, and if the enemy's frozen, 40%. So obviously that can work really well. Another good one is 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate, which I just mentioned. Especially if you have an energy recharge weapon on, highly recommend trying this out at least, because it's pretty good. And aside from that, I just usually use a 2-piece mix. Any of the attack percentage pieces, 2-piece Blizzard Strayer, Emblem, Noblesse. You can also run 4-piece Noblesse if you like. If you want her to be your Noblesse user, that works fine as well, because she can get her burst up quite often. So what substats to look out for? You want to look for crit rate, crit damage, energy recharge, and attack percentage. Of course, you want attack percentage on the sands. That's going to be the best way to go. You could do energy recharge, but I recommend attack percentage by a mile. For her cup, you want to have cryo damage pretty much in any situation, other than if you're using her as a physical DPS, obviously. And for the headpiece, you want crit rate or crit damage, whichever you're needing more of. So here's a little bit of footage of her in action. She's incredibly good at keeping enemies frozen because of the constant cryo application, and really good melt enabler. Just all around amazing. And here's just her with Hu Tao melting this Ruin Guard. It's gone. Just gone. Alright, she works really well in a lot of teams. One team I mentioned earlier on in the video is a superconduct team for physical damage. Her providing the cryo and physical shred for official. And then of course Zhongli also shredding resistances, and Yunjin increasing normal attack damage. You can also run her in a freeze team. Something like this is really fun to run. Of course, you can put Ayaka in there, And she can battery Ayaka incredibly well. Or Eula, or whoever. You can also run her in a melt team. Or this team is fun to run. It's what I call a freeze melt. And this team right here is great because you got Geo Resonance, tons of damage coming from Albedo, and also lots of melts for Hu Tao. But she can be thrown into a lot of different teams. She's very versatile. Alright, so just a quick summary of what artifacts are the best. The best 4-piece for support Zarya is going to be the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer, 4-piece Emblem, and if you're running her full just support, the 4-piece Noblesse is going to work fine. And of course, 2-piece combos of any of the aforementioned artifact sets, and any of the attack percentage artifact sets, such as Gladiators, and all that good stuff. Her best weapons are going to be the Favonius Lance, Deathmatch, Engulfing Lightning, Staff of Homa, and Primordial Jade Spear. Now, I would recommend the Wavebreaker's Fin or the Catch, but they are very situational. Mostly if you're just wanting to do elemental burst damage, they can definitely work fine. And all of these other options are okay as well, but there are better alternatives. So what if you want to run Rosaria as a main DPS? Well, you can definitely do that. And you saw that my talent was at like level 5, and I'm dealing this much damage. This is insane. This is also with a 4-star weapon. Using the Dragon Spine Spear, Refinement 4. I actually built this weapon before she had been released, and I was a little bit disappointed with it at first, but it's actually not that bad. However, I do think that Crescent Pike is a better option because the passive skill is more reliable, and she makes a lot of elemental particles, so I would definitely recommend that one over the Dragon Spine. Of course, once again, Deathmatch is amazing. Definitely recommend Deathmatch. And Blackcliff is actually going to work a lot better in this situation because if she's your main DPS, she's going to be causing the kills a lot of the time, giving you a lot of attack percentage. So, really good weapon there. Very easy to obtain. And yeah, I recommend. Any of the 5-star weapons are good, especially Staff of Homa. This one's amazing. Primordial Jade Spear, also great. And then if you don't have anything else, there is always the White Tassel. In form of 3-star option, that's pretty much the only 3-star option. So let's talk about her artifacts for a second. The best way to go is to have a 2-piece Pill Flame and a 2-piece Bloodstained, or either of those mixed with 2-piece Gladiator, Shimenawa, or the other attack percentage. You can also run a 4-piece Shimenawa because it will give you 50% increased damage on your normal attacks and charge attacks at the cost of a little bit of energy, but she's so good at replenishing energy that it doesn't really matter. You can also run a 4-piece Gladiator and you'll get 35 extra damage on your normal attacks. And that's actually quite big, plus the attack percentage. And for substats, you know, crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, you want physical damage cup and a crit rate or crit damage headpiece. Pretty standard. Let's show a clip of her in action in Spiral Abyss. See, I really see potential here because I do not have her invested very high, and I'm still doing pretty decent damage and was able to clear that floor with ease. So if you're running her as your main DPS, running Geo Resonance is a great idea, and of course, an Electro character like Fischl or Beidou to give you that wonderful super conduct. It's the best way to go. And if you don't have Zhongli, you can use Noelle, and you'll even get some heals. Of course, you don't have to run her using a Geo team at all. You can also use characters to help you make freeze. Like you can put Barbara on there and get some healing and some freezing. You could also use Kokomi if you have her. Of course, you could also put Xingqiu on there, which would be a great option. Or even Bennett, because Bennett will help you get more damage as well. Just make sure that you have the superconductor, and you should be pretty good to go. Shenhe is also great because not only will you get a bump in your cryo damage, but she will help you with your normal attack damage as well, which is really nice to have. And as I said before, her elemental burst does snapshot, so Bennett and Shenhe work amazing with her in that regard. So yeah, there's a lot of different options for her as a physical DPS as well. Pretty standard. Her best 4 pieces are going to be the new set, the Echoes of Offering. It is kind of RNG based, but it will work pretty well as it raises your normal attack damage by quite a lot. Same with Shimenawa's. That's a really good 4-piece set, since she gets so much energy back. And also the Gladiators. A 2-piece combo can be really amazing as well, with the Bloodstained and Pale Flame. And then, of course, any of the attack percentage pieces. Her best weapons are going to be the Crescent Pike, Deathmatch, the Dragon Spine Spear, Staff of Homa, Primordial Jade Spear, and why I put this one under usable is because it's very circumstantial. As I said before, the Blackcliff pull is really good for her if you're constantly killing enemies, and especially at high refinements, this thing is really, really strong. And then also there's a couple other options. The other 5-star options will work just fine. And if you don't have anything else, you can use the white tassel until you get something better. Okay, so moving on to her constellations. Rosaria actually has some really powerful constellations. Her first one being mostly for her physical damage. When she deals a crit hit, her attack speed and normal attack damage will be increased by 10% for 4 seconds. And if you have high enough crit rate, this can pretty much just be an all the time thing. Her second constellation, probably being her best, raises the duration of her elemental burst by 4 seconds. As I mentioned before, you get 4 times the pulse without and 6 times the pulse with the C2. So really powerful. Helps you to spread the cryo and deal more damage. Definitely one of the better ones on here. Her C3 increases the damage of her elemental skill. Her C4 makes it so your crit hits regenerate 5 energy and can be triggered each time you use your elemental skill. C5 increases elemental bust, that's great. And Constellation 6 decreases opponent's physical resistance by 20% for 10 seconds. So that's why this one is so good for physical teams. All in all, she's a really good cryo character and also a good physical character, and she should be run on, well, she can be run on pretty much any team that you feel like. I hope that you found this guide helpful and gave you a good idea of how to play Rosaria. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye. Tits.